Today, I'd like to continue our journey through the book of Judges, where in the beginning of chapter 14, and Samson has decided to take a wife from among the Philistines. His father and mother didn't want him to take this particular wife, and they would have preferred that Samson would have taken a wife from his own people. Philistines had a different way of worship. The Philistines had been oppressing the Jewish people now for 40 years. It's like, Samson, why do you have to pick a wife among the Philistines? And when you reflect on it, the question you ask yourself, was this a real question of discernment? Was this a wife who had certain qualities that appealed to Samson, that he could make a good marriage with, that he could form family with? Or was it more a question of lust? She was beautiful, he was attracted, and not really thinking things through in terms of what would be a good, lasting relationship. Very interesting comment, though, in the scriptures, in the sense that, yes, this was maybe a poor choice on Samson's part, as we're going to see as it's played out, but yet this was something that was from the Lord, which raises a very interesting question for us in terms of how the Lord can work in many situations that we would say are not really perfect or ideal situations, but yet in those situations, the Lord is still working. And it seems to be what's happening here with Samson and this Philistine woman. We don't even see her name in the scripture, but just that she's a Philistine woman. Because ultimately, through this relationship, it is going to provide an opportunity for the Israelites to defeat the Philistines and to establish a little bit more of independence, which is ultimately a good thing for them. This is what we call an exogenous marriage. Exogenous in the sense that the bride would stay with her own family. No bride price is paid. The children then belong to her family, and the groom must bring a present when he visits his wife. So this is a little bit of an unusual and a different type of marriage relationship, where the bride doesn't come and live with the husband. When Samson and his mother and father were going down to Timnah, and Timnah was in the territory of the Philistines, a young lion came roaring to meet him. Samson, though, because of his great strength and power, tore the lion to pieces. And it's interesting how the scripture puts it. Samson tore this lion to pieces as someone would tear a kid, which is a young sheep. So you could easily tear that, and so Samson does the same with the lion, which again shows his tremendous strength. Samson did not mention to his father and mother what he had done. He just did this thing with the lion on his own. His mother and father weren't with him at the time, and they did not know what he had done. Later, when he was returning to marry the woman he liked, he saw this lion, and he stopped to take some honey out of the carcass of the lion that he had slain. So the bees, thinking, well, this is a good place to deposit the honey, and there were bees there in the carcass, good spot for them, nice and warm, nice and protected. And so these bees generate the honey, and the honey is left in the carcass. So he gave his mother and father, he took some of the honey out, gave it to his mother and father, but he didn't tell them where the honey had come from. He kind of kept this as a secret from his mom and dad. So now his father goes with him to meet the woman that Samson wanted to marry. And Samson threw a banquet. The family brought 30 men to be his companions at the banquet. So these 30 are Philistines, and they come to the banquet that Samson is throwing. Again, with this examinous marriage, this would have been typical that you would throw a banquet for the family, and the family would come and celebrate the marriage. So Samson, when they're there, says, well, I'm going to give you a riddle. And we'll make a little wager about this riddle. And I'm going to wager 30 linen tunics and 30 sets of garments. You have these sets of garments, the sets of linen, it'd be one each because there are 30 of them. See if you can solve this riddle. If not, he has to pay quite a huge sum of the tunics and sets of garments to the Philistines. And his riddle is this: out of the eater came forth food, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And they have 7 days, the 7 days that the feast was going to last, this wedding feast. They have 7 days to answer the riddle. So they make the wager. He gives them the riddle, and they're like, oh, how are we going to solve this riddle now? This is a difficult riddle. So they try for 3 days. They can't answer the riddle. They're perplexed by the riddle. So on the 4th day, they kind of have given up at this point with all sorts of solutions, none of which work. They go to the wife, and they say, try to get the answer out of Samson, please. But if you don't, there will be consequences. And the consequences are we're going to burn you and we're going to burn your family. Ooh, serious consequences. And why such serious consequences? They say, well, we don't want to be reduced to poverty. We don't have to give them all of these garments and all of these tunics, and we're going to have nothing. So because we wagered this on this riddle that we thought we would probably solve and we would get all of the garments, now we have to give them up. So his wife tries to get it out of Samson, tries very hard. But Samson refuses. And she starts crying, gets emotional. And he said, well, I haven't even told my father or mother. And I'm going to tell you? No, that's not right. So, of course, she goes back to Samson and says, Samson, if you really love me, if you truly love me, you would tell me the answer to this riddle. Here is Samson. He is caught. Does he really love her? So this is a difficult situation for Samson. He doesn't want to tell her, doesn't want to give the riddle away, but she's questioning his love. And we will see how Samson responds to this difficult dilemma.